Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Live with Rye. I am so thrilled you are joining me, and I just want to take a moment to thank you all for your continued love and support throughout my journey with this show. It means the world to me, and truly, I am so thankful and humbled for all of you. But before we begin, I do have a few favors to ask of you. First, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you never miss an episode of Live with Rye, and to see all of my other videos that I upload as well. And if you're joining us on Facebook, hit that thumbs up and give us a like so I know that you're watching, or even give us a heart as well. And follow me across social media. I love hearing from you, and let's continue the conversation. So I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Rye_Myers on Instagram and Twitter, and on Facebook at official Rye Myers. I love hearing from you, and let's connect. You'll also see my website scrolling across the bottom of the screen, RyeTheNewsGuy.com. Head over there to rewatch all episodes of Live with Rye to see any episodes you may have missed, all of my other exclusive content and interviews, my production company and all Rye Entertainment and all the exciting producing projects I'm working on, and so much more. And lastly, I love what I do. I love bringing you exclusive, exciting interviews with some of the biggest names in the Broadway, entertainment, and pop culture world, and focus solidly on positive, good, lighthearted interviews. But I can't do it without you. So if you are so inclined, I would love if you would consider supporting the show and my platform, RyeTheNewsGuy.com. You can head to RyeTheNewsGuy.com/donate, which is also scrolling across the bottom of your screen as well throughout the broadcast. So you can visit there as well and make a donation. Or you can scan the QR code and that'll take you to the donation page as well. To the donation page as well. If you are so inclined, I would love whatever you're able to give. It would mean the world to me, and I truly cannot thank you enough. So again, you'll see the donation link scrolling across the bottom of the screen. And with that, let's get started and welcome my very special guest, Eric Woodall. Hey, Eric.
Hi, Rye.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh my goodness, thank you for having me. I mean, just listening to your opening introduction, there's so much positivity and joy that comes through you. It's a thrill to be with you today.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you really taking the time. How have you been holding up personally during this time? I mean, I know it's been so tough for all of us creatives, with COVID, but and in that same breath, are you optimistic sort of about the future of live performance too?
I am optimistic. It has been tough for everyone in the arts. It's been tough for everyone in the world, but the arts has taken such a hit, as we're seeing. It's going to be it's going to take so long for everything to really bounce back the way that we know, especially theater, to be. But I do see the light at the end of the COVID tunnel. And, when all of this began, we put our heads together, and I would talk to many different artistic directors and producers and, brainstorming like, what is going to be the end of this? And honestly, we all kept coming back to vaccination. Like we couldn't see a way that it was really going to be able to begin again until people were vaccinated. Just because how do you do what we do in a socially distanced way, really?
Right.
And I'm not talking about the audience, but putting the shows on, having product. So seeing now how quickly that's going and the incredible news of that, and I do see we're gonna be taking baby steps, but they're at least steps. And I think everybody has been very patient, but with Zoom projects, and people have been so creative, and there's been an amazing amount of creative product that's come out of this time. But there's nothing that replaces live theater. North Carolina Theater, where I'm currently the artistic director, we have produced several pieces that were virtual content. We've produced 2 different series, and we're very proud of those. But we're happy to let those segue back into doing live entertainment.
Well, I love to hear that, and I agree. Yeah, I think the vaccines are the way of it. We do all love, being able to create digitally, but there's nothing like being in person. So I feel you on that. You mentioned being the producing artistic director of North Carolina Theater. You recently celebrated 2 years there. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What has that experience been like for you? I am sure when you took the job, you were not expecting to have the COVID pandemic happen and sort of having to think. But how has it been for you to be producing artistic director?
I love it. I really do love it. I'm originally from North Carolina, so it's a full circle moment, because when I was in high school as a performer, I did shows with North Carolina Theater. North Carolina Theater has always brought people from Broadway to North Carolina to be in shows with local performers, and that mixture is magical. And that's something that we continue doing today. We employ over half of the entertainers are from the North Carolina area, and everybody in the orchestra and backstage is from this area. But then you bring in these New York directors and choreographers and sometimes designers and Broadway actors and create this amazing product that is really different than anything else in the area, because it's very different than a tour, because we're making it here and we're employing North Carolinians. So that was happening back in the old days when I was in high school. And so that was my first introduction really to professional theater in that way, and thinking I can do this. I could do this. And, it's led to a life in the theater. Being the producing artistic director here was a dream come true. Because it took all of my experience as an actor and a director and producer and a casting director, and it allows me to combine all of those aspects of my experience. And I'm able to be back in my homeland, close to my mom and my brother and my sister-in-law and my nieces and other extended family. And especially in a time like this, it's been incredible to be close by. So I think of it as a bridge, me being a bridge to Broadway, and this connection with all of my Broadway work and connecting North Carolina theater and North Carolina to that element of things. So I've loved it. I've loved the work. I've loved the steps that we have taken with increasing our identity, letting more people here and more people abroad know who we are and what we're about. And we were really chipping away at that before the pandemic hit. And the pandemic sucks. It has sucked, for everybody. And it has, made most everything stop completely. But I'm so excited about picking back up and continuing that great connection with New York, and continuing to grow with furthering our mission and what we stand for here at North Carolina Theater, which is connecting the community with the top professional Broadway scope.
I love to hear that. That is exciting, and I'm so glad that these 2 years have, really helped you. And it's nice that you are back home and in your home base, and that's extra special as well. And to be able to bring that taste of Broadway back to North Carolina, where you grew up, with North Carolina Theater, that's really, really special. So as producing artistic director, sort of talking about these last years with COVID, how did you pivot during this time? I understood that you have created Backstage at NCT, and how have you gone to that digital landscape? Tell me about that.
Absolutely. There were lots of things that went into it because, everybody panics, and not just panics, but thinks, we want to stay relevant, and how do we stay connected to our audience, and what can we do for our audience during this time? And so there were so many questions with our conservatory. North Carolina Theater has a very successful school, the North Carolina Theater Conservatory. We were able there to pivot in a way with online classes And I was able to tap into a lot of the Broadway folks that I know to do virtual master classes. And we did different Broadway boot camps and really, really kept things going, and in some ways increased our attendance. And so that was a very positive experience. And as far as what we were doing at the theater itself, we don't own our space. So North Carolina Theater is a theater company, one of the resident companies in a large performing arts center located in downtown Raleigh. So I started with, what are our givens? What are the circumstances? What could we do? And it hit me that our rehearsal space is like a black box theater. So I wanted to turn that into a television studio. And that's what we did. We built a backstage set. So it would look like, kind of like Noises Off, Act 2 of Noises Off. Right. So it would look like you were backstage, about to go on stage. And that, it started just snowballing the ideas. And I thought, what can we do now that we couldn't do before, or we weren't doing before? And that was turning the light inward and walking backstage and doing interviews with stage managers and costume designers and lighting designers and sound engineers. And so having these really conversations like you and I are having now, and allowing folks to tell what they do. And we had the most amazing response. Even people who know theater inside and out, even a lot of my New York friends would text me and say, I never knew that. I had no idea. I didn't know that. And that was thrilling to be able to do that. And then, because for the theatrical element, we did mix in 2 performance elements for every episode. We would have a professional from the area, because we were really highlighting our local talent. And we would have a local professional person sing. And then we would also feature a student from our conservatory. Because we were filming it, we would film it all in sections. We would only have 1 or 2 people at most in the studio at a time. And we would stay very distanced, in mask the whole times, until the moment before we would do the interview part. And it was very, very successful. And something that, you know, if we learn anything, if we take the positives from this time, we'll think about what we came up with and what elements do we want to continue with. You know, I think finding a way to shine a light on our backstage artisans and continuing with something like that. You know, we've been talking with the local PBS station to try to come up with a series of sorts to do exactly that, to lean into the backstage element of putting on a production. People find it fascinating. And we love to do that. So that was one of our big pivots.
Well, what an exciting pivot that was. And I love that you decided to do that and focus on that sort of that backstage area and sense in that point. That's wonderful. And to highlight those people that, you know, don't always get the opportunity to be shown and highlighted. That's truly wonderful. How will North Carolina theater emerge from the pandemic as one of the leading theaters in North Carolina area and in the country, and as Elwood says, become so much better than before?
Well, I think I love that. And I really do hope we can become so much better than before. I mean, I love where we were, but our president CEO, Elizabeth Doran, she joined North Carolina Theater about a little bit more than a year before I did. And she was responsible for bringing me in. And we have really wanted to I don't want to say make some changes, because when I say that, it always makes it feel like we weren't pleased with the way things were. And that couldn't be further from the truth. But things were done a certain way, and the theater was a certain institution, a certain company. And it's important to Elizabeth Doran and I to really make it feel more like a regional theater, and to have more of a community connection with every show that we do. So when I'm picking a season, I want the season to have an emotional, sometimes a visceral response to different elements and ethnic groups in our community. And I pick a season and I make a season with all of that in mind, so that hopefully there's a theme that runs through it and it is well-rounded. That wasn't necessarily the goal before. It was pick great shows, which there's nothing wrong with that. But that's something that we want to do. And just what I was sharing with you before about being a very professional theater in this area, we often get confused with the performing arts centers here that bring in tours, because our product looks very similar. And people many times don't know the difference, and they don't know that they're seeing a show that's rolling in on a truck, unloading, playing for a week, rolling out. And we have put it together here, and we're employing folks from here. And I just think when people know that, they get invested in a different way and they feel a sense of pride. That's not taking anything away from the amazing tours. I've cast many of those tours that come through here and have a love and respect for them. But we're trying to further that message that we are Broadway in your backyard. We are building it here for you and with you. We're taking members of your community and putting them with Broadway performers. I told the story before, but I was directing a production about a year ago, and there was this young woman. She was actually a student for us, and she was in a show that we were doing, and she was in this scene with Broadway performers. And I could tell she was a little nervous. I could tell something was going on. I didn't know. And we had a break, and I pulled her aside and I said, "Is everything okay?" And she said, "Oh my God, I just have to tell you." She said, "The guy that I'm doing the scene with right now, about a year ago, I was in New York and I waited at the stage door for him to come out and sign my autograph after I saw him in a show. And now I am looking at his eyeballs and I'm saying lines." And she said, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Thank you for this opportunity. And so, that just, it gives me chills right now, but that's the kind of thing, that's why I think North Carolina theater is special, that we have this opportunity to provide that kind of experience to local performers, and then to provide that experience to local audience members. I'm really proud to be a part of that. And I think we can spread that message more and more. We come out of it, we're going to start smaller. We're going to start a little bit smaller, with show choices and perhaps some cast sizes, but it won't look that different to audiences, because we'll still have a big bang for the buck, with our artistic merit. But as far as what we do and how we do it and what stories we're telling, we're continuing to hone that, not just because of the pandemic, but because of the Black Lives Matter movement and Stop Asian Hate and We See You. It's time to change. And at North Carolina Theater, we have begun some of those changes, and I'm proud that we have, but there is so much more to do. And we have our eyes open as we head towards the future with that.
Well, that's good to hear, and we'll talk more about that later on. But you mentioned about shows and cast sizes. Why don't you tell us, I saw on the website, you've released your 2021 and 2022 season. I was saying to you before you came on how excited I was when I looked on the website and actually saw a theater season online available. Talk about taking things for granted. Before you're like, oh yes, theater season. But I was so excited to see, and you have some great shows. So why don't you tell us what the shows are and when they start?
Absolutely. Thanks, Rye. We're excited about it. It has morphed. We had some of these shows ready to do in early 21, even some of them in late 20. But we have continued to switch things around and hold on to the majority of what our season was supposed to be. But we have reconfigured some things, and we still have this overriding theme of find your voice and celebrate who you are. And so there's a lot of that in the shows that we're doing. We're starting off in July, late July into early August. We're going to be doing Songs for New World, which the title could not be more appropriate. And the feeling of the show with taking stock of where we are and every moment of change and discovery, and how life can change in 1 second. And what does that mean? And when are we in control and when are we not? Not to mention the incredible music by Jason Robert Brown. It's a new show for most everybody here in this area. And so that's going to be thrilling to share that with people. You know, that's something that I've loved since the mid 90s. So I'm thrilled to be able to share that. It also helps us because it is very small. It's 4 actors on stage, a very small band. We will be able to do that with the state restrictions and the equity restrictions. We're still working with them very closely to make sure that we are following all guidelines, and we have fingers crossed that we'll be able to perform it inside of our theater. Our theater is large, it's 2,300 seats. So we'll only be able to have a fraction of that audience come in socially distanced. And but we will also sell virtual tickets. So if people are not comfortable coming in, or we're not able to have a full audience in, which we won't have a full audience in, we'll be able to do the virtual tickets. So that's our first slot, Songs for New World. Then we're going to head into the fall, hopefully taking more baby steps, growing a bit more, hopefully with a larger set, a larger band, a larger cast, and we're going to do 9 to 5. It's one of the shows that our audiences have told us for years, even before I got here, that they really wanted to see. We're going to embrace the fun of that show, the Dolly Parton element of that show, her incredible music. We're also going to, we're going to pay respect to the Me Too movement. We're going to pay respect to what it means to be a strong woman and be in the workplace, and hopefully look at where they were when the show takes place, which is in the early 1980s, and where we are today with some of the growth and changes and some areas where there hasn't been growth and changes. So we will be able to highlight that through the fun of that incredible show, because it's very close to the movie. We then go hopefully into our small theater in late fall with Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill. And just on the heels of the movie of the United States versus Billie Holiday, I think audiences are very interested. It's a tough subject matter. She was she had a tough life, but she's an amazing woman to be studying and to be experiencing. And the show is incredible. It's basically a one-woman show. She's on stage with her band, very small band. And it's a play with music, because we get to hear so many of those incredible Billie Holiday tunes, and we get to follow her life. So that rounds out 2021. And then the second part of our season will start 2022 with Sister Act. And we are incredibly excited about that. We'll be doing that show, which, again, finding your own voice and celebrating who you are. That really corresponds with everything that Sister Act is about. We then go into Ring of Fire, which is the small cast version of Ring of Fire. It's 5 actor instrumentalists, and they step in and out of the narrative of telling the story or the life of Johnny Cash. And again, it's mixing in those amazing songs with the country sound, but everybody loves Johnny Cash. So that's again going to be in our smaller theater to create more of an intimate experience. And then we will round out our season in the summer of 2022 with On Your Feet, the musical of Gloria and Emilio Estefan. And gosh, I have wanted to bring that here secretly since I saw it. I was like, oh my God, that would be so good at NCT. And that was long before I was here.
What a great way to end. the season with that
It
show.
is, isn't it? It's literally on your feet. And there was a moment where we thought we might be able to do it earlier in the season, but I thought, no, let's hold on. Let's go out with a bang, and hopefully, well, I'm really counting on by the summer of 2022, we're going to be able to have a larger company and do the show with all of the elements and the lights and the sets and the cast and the orchestra that we wanted to have, and not have anything reduced in that way. So that's our season. I think it's a pretty good one, and I can't wait to share it with everybody.
Well, I certainly hope that by this summer, and hopefully even maybe a little before, you can do it at full capacity with all the full doodads that go into a show like that. And I am just so excited about that season. I don't live in the area, but just to hear that, such great shows. Sort of on that beat of hoping to have full capacity and having the shows be done fully. What have you heard from your colleagues in New York City? Do you feel that regional and community theaters may return before Broadway? And what are you hearing from some of your colleagues here in the city and some of your colleagues in the industry? I know, obviously, no one has a crystal ball, and I always don't want to get ahead of myself. I always like to say no one really does know the answer, but I'm just curious what you've heard.
Well, I mean, you and I use the same phrase. I say crystal balls so often. And I sometimes bring that back into conversations just to ground it in knowing that we are just all speculating, because there is no way to know. I know that Broadway is working as diligently as they can. It's just going to be tough because of how tightly everything fits together, backstage, on stage, in the front of the stage, waiting to get in the theater. I mean, it's until people are really vaccinated, it's going to be tough, but they're continuing to work on that. I think, regionally, especially when people can perform outside, with the Muni announcing their season this week, and I think, outdoor spaces are really starting to pick up, and that's good news. And then I'm starting to hear about some indoor performances that are very close to getting the green light from equity. Community theaters, I think, and professional theaters that may be professional but non-union, they may start a little sooner because of not following the equity guidelines. Whether or not, that's something for people to be decided.
Yeah.
If they are following those guidelines and not being a union house or not. But I think that everybody is beginning to talk about it. I mean, I know it's state by state. Here in North Carolina, our governor just, he's been, the guidelines have been very strict, I think in a really positive way. I think it's been helpful, personally, but he just opens things up a little more. And so that's going to be helpful for art institutions.
Oh, well, that's just wonderful to hear. Yeah, I'm very optimistic for the future. I think, this season, I always like to say, nobody knows, but I have a feeling that by the end of the year, by December 31st, 2021, I say to people, I believe that we will see a Broadway show of some sort. It may only be one, it may only be two, but I am confident that by the end of the year, we'll hopefully be able to say we got to see a Broadway show again in some form or capacity here in New York. So
I think you will. I really think you will. I mean, again, we have no way of knowing, but from what I'm hearing and what I'm feeling is I would not be surprised if there's not some show or maybe a couple shows. It's going to be layered, but there might be a show or two even in the fall, maybe more than that. But, they have to rehearse. I mean, if it's an existing show and they have a cast in place and they don't have to go through the entire process from scratch, I don't know, this is just me talking, but I can see a world in which an existing show could pick up and get back in a little bit quicker.
Right.
And wouldn't that be terrific?
That would be. Well, speaking of shows and on that sort of that Broadway beat, before working at NCT, you were a casting director for 16 years with Tara Rubin Casting, and you've some of the biggest shows that we know on Broadway, including Dear Evan Hansen, Phantom of the Opera, Mary Poppins, Jersey Boys, and a slew of others. I would be here all day if I listed them. So many incredible ones. What was that experience like for you as a casting director, and how did you get started with that? And from all of that, what was the most rewarding experience in your 16 years as a casting director?
Oh gosh. Casting has been such a big part of my life. Tara Rubin has been an incredible part of my life, and given me so many opportunities, and such an incredible friend and mentor, and is just the best. I mean, first of all, with those amazing titles that you mentioned, one of the great things about working with Tara Rubin Casting is there is an amazing team of people, and some of those shows I didn't work on myself, such as I was around a little bit in the early days of Jersey Boys, but Mary Sugarman has really done Jersey Boys, with Tara, and I didn't have much to do with Dear Evan Hansen. But I did with many of those others, and certainly Mamma Mia for 10 years, and Phantom of the Opera, and Les Mis, and a lot of the Disney shows, Little Mermaid, Mary Poppins, and Hunchback, and the experiences were incredible. If I have to sum it up in a lesson, it's say yes. Say yes in this business, because you have no idea what's going to lead you to your dream. When I took the job with Tara, I struggled and I worried, because I'd been an actor and I'd been a director, and I thought, I'm selling out. I'm going to the other side of the table. It's going to be all business. It's not going to be creative. And I was so surprised. Who knew that my life on Broadway was going to be through casting, that I was going to be sitting next to Susan Stroman and learning from her, and next to her in a dance audition, taking notes with her. Who knew that I was going to be there with James Lapine and be in a room with Stephen Sondheim? And I know I'm being name droppy, but it's the little giddy kid in me, and Tara Rubin and I, like squealing after being in a room and talking with Mike Nichols one of the first times. It's incredible, and being a fly on the wall and sometimes not saying anything and just being there is an amazing education. And then sometimes being much more than a fly on the wall, and being responsible and for who they see, and who a director is responding to, and how the show gets cast, and feeling like you're really playing a part of developing these shows from scratch. Sometimes it could take 2, 3, 7, 10 years for a show to actually make it. So many hundreds don't, that we've done readings for and worked on. And I would say that's one of the most rewarding parts of casting, is seeing how the sausage gets made, and being a part of, I don't know if that's a great, being a part of the sausage factory, but really being there and being a part of it. And for this North Carolina boy to be making the Broadway shows, was thrilling. And casting is elusive.
Yes.
Casting is elusive. We keep this kind of mysterious veil around it, not on purpose most of the time. Sometimes we keep it there out of protection, because it's a very vulnerable business. It's when we get to see the vulnerable side of these titans, working and brainstorming and taking risks, and vulnerable because we get to see the difficult part of an actor's journey, coming in and exposing yourself and your talents, and taking a chance, and being scared and fearful, and so we protect that. discretion is the number one element, the number one important thing with Tara Rubin.
Yeah.
And I value that so much. And so then we can't get mad when people don't know what we do, you know? And there's a lot of that, like, you don't know what we do or what we see. And I used to feel really odd about that. Like, you don't know. And it doesn't really matter because we get to be a part of creation.
Yeah.
And that has been one of the gifts of my life, to be of service, to be a part of to sit there with Casey Nicola and to bring him people that he falls in love with, and to feel like you get somebody on a level and that you are doing that. And then on the flip side, to be a part of making people's dreams come true. Oh my goodness. To make that phone call to tell somebody that they got their first Broadway show, you know, or to even call their agent if you don't get them on the phone, but to tell the agent to hear everybody in the office scream, you know, that is worth it. And
even finding some of the talent that now today is some of the Broadway's top caliber. I mean, Sierra Bacchus, Little Mermaid. I know you didn't personally work on it, but Dear Evan Hansen, Ben Platt. I mean, all these, you know, I mean, some of these names that, you know, you really put on the map, given them their really first big break too.
It's true. It's true. And we all do work on things together. And you know, and I say that thing about Evan Hansen, but I did work. I mean, there was an actor who was in the Broadway company and then ended up as in the movie. And I got to know him when he was still at Baldwin Wallace and in school, and was such a champion of his. And he wrote me when he was filming, and he said, "I just have to thank you." And I mean, to be remembered in that way, and for people to say that, and Sierra is really sweet about it all, and we've had a lot of laughs about it. But, you know, I went to her showcase, and I wrote beside her picture, "Girl in Yellow Dress," and I wrote, "She can belt. No, she has a head voice. Can she belt?" And then it's crossed through. "Yes, she can," I wrote. And I wrote all these characters that hopefully she would play. And I wrote Fantine, which she did. And I wrote Christine, which she did. And I wrote Sophie in Mamma Mia, which she didn't get to. We tried to get her to do, but she was busy doing other things. I mean, that's just amazing. And to be able to be a part of it in that way is an honor.
I can imagine. I mean, just the thrill of it. And as you said, there is that elusiveness with casting, but it's so special getting to make somebody's dream come true. It's discovering the new talent, and also just getting to be a part of that process, knowing creatives, knowing, getting to go to the shows and seeing the full product when it's done on stage is rewarding. For about 6 months right after school, I interned in casting, and I got to sort of see what it was like. And it's a very, very interesting and cool sort of world. And I interned at Telsey and Company, and it was just so interesting to see this industry that, you know, you had heard about, but just to see how it worked. And as you said, how the sausage gets made, it was, you know, it's a very fascinating and beautiful, and as you said, sort of elusive industry. And I always do remember when, I mean, there were several times I can think of when, you know, they would tell people that, you know, they got the role, and just to see the excitement, and that was always exciting.
It is. And there's a lot of pressure. You know, in some ways I felt more pressure with casting than I ever felt with acting. And there's a tense pressure, and it's like being in a pressure cooker. You know, people used to say, "Well, what is it like?" And I said, I think it's like a campaign headquarters all the time. It's that pace. And now the phones don't ring. It's all, you know, it's all email, but it used to be like constant phone. You know, we had 6 lines, and they were always being used, and you couldn't get an outside line. And, you know, I say it's a lot like The West Wing, that pace and being there, the TV show, The West Wing. And there's an element that's a lot like Devil Wears Prada. Not that Tara is like Miranda Richardson at all. Not Miranda Richardson, Miranda Priestley at all. But but it was more that pressure with the clients, just you have one shot, you can't waste their time, you have to get things right. And then it's a lot like, I mean, we got to see it in, what was the chorus line? Every little step, that where they went backstage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, where they took the backstage look with casting it through Bender's office. And yeah, my heart pounded so hard when I saw that movie. I remember I saw it like on a Friday or Saturday night, and I thought, oh my God, I feel this like I'm at work. But it really captured the intensity. It's very intense.
Yes, it is. And from doing casting, how did that prepare you for your current job? And also, how did you, after 16 years, find yourself at NCT? I mean, did being an artistic director of a theater cross your mind? Was it something that you fell into? You missed your roots back home, but how did that come about from, a job that sounds like you loved, and now being a producing artistic director, which is just as fun, just as exciting in a new state? And did casting help you prepare for that?
Absolutely. Casting helped everything. So 10 years into casting, I went to Tara and I said, I'm very happy here. I miss directing. And she said, okay, let's figure out a way you can do it. And the way I started doing it was I would use my vacation time in the summers, and I would come to North Carolina and I would direct shows, both at North Carolina Theater. But first I started directing with Lauren Kennedy at her theater company, Theater Raleigh. She's a great friend, and we grew up together, and she really gave me the first chance to do that. So I started doing that through the summers. It started growing. I started getting time off. Tara would give me time off for it. And then I became a director for Mamma Mia, one of the resident directors there. So this was building up. But I was coming at least once a year, sometimes twice a year, to North Carolina Theater, and I was directing. And I was loving the connection here. I was also going to Casa Manana a great deal and directing with them out in Texas. So, you talk about dream boards, Oprah's dream board, like see it, say it, put it out in the universe. I did. I said, I want to be the artistic director of North Carolina Theater. Wow. And Casey Hushin, who was the artistic director here before me, is fantastic. And it was a part-time position. She still continues to live in the New Jersey, New York area. She has a great career as a director. She works a ton on Broadway and regionally. And they wanted to extend things here. So of course they went to her first to see if she wanted to move here and be full-time. She didn't, with her family and where her career was taking her. But I did. And I wanted a new challenge. And there really wasn't a place for me to move up unless I were to start my own business. And, I didn't really want to do that. I love doing casting with Tara. That's the only way I know how to do it. And I love it. But there wasn't a place to move up. I had been at that level for quite a while. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There isn't a lot of money in casting, there just isn't. It seems like there should be, it seems like there is, but there's not. No. So, although, there's not a lot of money in all elements of theater. So I still had to make some big decisions on being able to move here and take this, but I wanted a new challenge. And so it wasn't about the money. It was about the experience. And I thought this would be a way to take everything that I've done before and put it together. I do the casting here. I'm still in CSA. I'm still a casting director. I love it. Oh. It's so I'm not away from it. I'm calling all of the same agents, and they just know I'm wearing a different hat. I'm really wearing both hats because I'm calling as a casting director, but I am the producing artistic director who can make the decisions. So that's thrilling to be able to hold on to that life in that way.
Oh,
I no longer get to be a Tony voter, which I hate because I loved that and I loved that honor, and being a part of it. But that was tied to being a casting director, so I don't get to do that a casting director on Broadway.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's wonderful that you get to have the best of both worlds, and what
Yeah.
you got to also be able to do what you love while you were at Tara Rubin's, in the summers, being able to direct, and now you've sort of really found, I would say, I guess, your true voice. Not that you didn't when you were casting, but you've sort of have now found, really what you were made to do. And I say that in the best way possible. Not that anything about casting wasn't, but you're now doing, something that is what you love, and you're being able to be producing artistic director while also being a casting director. That's really exciting.
It does. It seems like a great extension. It seems like a great next step. I'm not going to lie. I miss casting. I miss the people that I got to work with. I miss New York. I'm not going to lie. But I do get to New York every couple months, or did before the pandemic, because I have to go there for auditions and for meetings and for readings, and I still get to keep that connection. But the life that one makes, after 16 years of working with incredible Broadway people and the most amazing casting office, I miss everybody. I really do. I miss that. And it's been a big adjustment. But life is about change, life is about new challenges. And so I've been really excited about this one, and I'm excited to see where it takes me next. Not necessarily another place,
right.
But where it takes me next here.
I know
for the time being.
So thrilling. Well, switching gears a bit, going back to what we were mentioning earlier regarding diversity, I would love to know, what are some ways that NCT is helping to continue to amplify BIPOC voices and continue its EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives?
Well, diversity in casting has been something that has been so important to me all of my years in casting. And, it has been to Tara and our whole office, but in some ways, I know Tara would say this about me, but it really has been at the forefront of my mind. And I don't know where it comes from. And she has called me through the last several months and said, I think she said, I was thinking about it, Eric. I think it came from how you grew up, and I think it came from your college experience. But she said, you taught us in a way. You came in here and you were so determined that there was going to be diversity in places where it didn't say there was diversity, and Mamma Mia taught me to do it, believe it or not. And I got my feet wet with Mamma Mia, and it was ingrained in us. And I love that. And working with Disney, it is so important to folks at Disney. And so having those two big powerhouses support that idea, you start to carry it with you in everything you work on. So every show that I would direct would have an element of that. So, when I would come to North Carolina Theater, long before I was here as producing artistic director, I found ways to do Gypsy and have a multiracial cast, because that's the way I felt the story should be told. It should give the opportunities to those performers, and the audiences should be seeing that that's the way we're doing things now. If you build it, they will come. You have to lead it. And so we have been taking those steps here, and we're going to continue to take those steps here. And that's wonderful. And there's more to do on stage. But now we have to really turn it to our creative teams and our board. We've taken some nice steps with our staff. And one of the things that we're really proud of here at North Carolina Theater is we started our own diversity, equity, and inclusion task force with our staff. It was volunteer, but everybody joined. We did training, and we brought folks in to do the training with us. On the task force that we created, we have one of our board members who is a charter member of this task force. And that board member goes back and reports on that and shares everything that she has learned with the board. So those are some active steps that we're taking. And it's just about, it's a tricky thing to talk about, because you want to talk about steps that you're taking because you want to show that you're doing things. But then it's tough to talk about it because it seems like I did this, check. I did this, check. And we did this, check. And it starts to look like we're hiring certain people because of their skin tone, their ethnicity. And it's not that. We have to hire the best people. It's just making sure that those two things line up, and there's a lot of work to be done, because one of the things that we've learned through the last year is that there may not be this huge pool of BIPOC designers of a certain area or stage managers. I'm just using things as example.
Yeah.
But the problem is because there hasn't been the training provided. There hasn't been the education. There hasn't been the outreach to include people. So one of the things that's important to me is starting an internship on every one of our shows to work with the director or the choreographer, and for it to have an honorarium with it, to be a paid internship, and for that to be for a BIPOC artist. And so, that's something that is important to me and to North Carolina Theater to start, so that we start that training, and that we're introducing people to something and giving them the opportunity so that they're ready next time when we're wanting to hire or other people are wanting to hire. I think that's an important step that sometimes gets missed.
It really is. And I think that's so important what you're doing, and everything you said, it is so vital. It is so important. And I'm so glad to see the steps that North Carolina Theater is taking. That's wonderful. And I'm excited to see what continues to happen, not just North Carolina Theater, but in the industry in general. Hopefully we continue to make some good strides. As we start to finish up here, what is your advice for people who want to pursue a career in arts administration, such as casting or being an artistic director, or even directing? What advice would you give to them?
Well, there's a few different things. I mean, education. Education can be going to a school and getting training in it, which I do recommend. There are many different types of programs. I do think that is worthwhile. There's also the education of doing. If you get the opportunity before you're in a training program, say yes, do it. Volunteer, be an intern, even if it's an unpaid internship. If you're able to do it, do it. Try just to be around great people. Work with as many people as you can. As I was saying earlier, when doors open, you don't know how that's going to connect you to your dream. You just have no idea. I had no idea that my hesitation with casting, that casting was going to be the door that I stepped through that led me to directing, because Tara said yes. Right. That led me to working with these amazing people that gave me the education and the know-how to be able to be an artistic director when that door opened. Never sit on your couch or a bar stool and wonder what if. You're not going to be discovered at home. Maybe through Zoom. But you have to be active. You have to be out there doing it. And it may not look like what you think it's going to look like to start with, but you won't know until you try. Don't be scared to try. As far as administrative jobs and casting, those are tougher to come by. I mean, really reaching out, being an intern, letting people know that you are interested. Those are ways to start. That through interning at Telsey. Those are amazing educations. Years ago, when I was still an actor, I was a reader. That's how I first saw what casting was about, because I was in there for days on end, and I thought, that is really cool. So get involved any way that you think you can, combined with a training program if that's possible for you, and that's my advice.
I love that. That is such great advice. Yes, always say yes. That is so important, and education I agree with as well. So where can we keep up with you, Eric? And where can we follow you and North Carolina Theater, all that good stuff?
Yes, well, North Carolina Theater has Instagram, NC Theater spelled with the R-E, and on Twitter. And then we're also on Facebook, where you can follow us. I personally am on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram. It's not connected necessarily to North Carolina Theater, although it kind of is, because I post about things that are North Carolina theater related. So that's Eric Woodall on Instagram and ericwoodall.com, and also northcarolinatheater.com is a way to stay in touch. But I really do encourage folks to stay in touch at this time, because this is going to be the way that we get word out about audition opportunities and job openings and intern possibilities, and whether we're doing things locally or we're doing things, based out of New York. This is the way to stay connected.
I agree. I agree. So as a reminder, you can go to www.nctheater.com. That's theater with an R-E. Keep up with Eric by going to ericwoodall.com. He's on Instagram as well, and so is NC Theater. As a reminder to everyone watching, if you like what you're watching, I would love if you'd consider supporting the show. You can head to rythenewsguy.com/donate if you are so inclined. I love being able to bring you all of this exciting content. You can also scan this QR code as well. It'll take you to the donation page as well. Thank you for your continued love and support. It means the world to me. Eric, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me, to talk about all things theater and casting, producing, artistic directing, and everything in between. It was so lovely to get to know you more and hear your story, and I'm excited for the future of theater, of what's to come.
Oh my gosh, Rye, thank you. You were so prepared and you asked amazing questions, and the light and the love that comes through you is infectious. So anytime you need anything from me, you just give a call. I'm here.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Take care.